Hi guys, and welcome to this one. In this episode we're going to be making short stroke front coilover conversions using inserts, springs, some old parts and your original hubs. So let's get into it. I start by measuring out all the parts so that we are sure that everything will go together. This is the new strut inserts of the shock absorbers, and I'm using MR2 from 1998 model. They are about 40 millimeters shorter than the stock celica 71 TA22 inserts. So first of all, I measure down everything, the length of the inside of the tube of the stock shock struts, as well as to get a reference of how much we want to take out. Then we add and subtract so that we get the numbers we want. In any case, it'll be about 40 millimeters total. Then you cut off the spring perch, which is the old base for the stock spring. And then once you cut that off, you measure out the 40 millimeters distance that you want removed. And remember that the 40 millimeters that you want removed is combined with the width of the cut. And using this saw, normally you can find the dimensions of the saw blade on the blade. Otherwise, just take sliding calipers and measure it. In this case, it's 3 millimeters. So 3 millimeters times 2, that's the cuts, will equal 34 millimeters on the inside. So that will give us a total of 40 millimeters. Once you cut that down, you can see you will have a strut that is 40 millimeters shorter than before. I just use some masking tape to mark this up to compare where I want to make the second cuts. This is the time now to put in the inserts to make sure that your length and the way you want it to be will fit. If you have a threaded sleeve, now's the time you measure it out to where you want to put it, and you will put it down on the outside of the over the cut to make sure that your tube is as strong as possible. I'm reusing an old cheap coilover set, so I'm going to be using the threaded sleeve from that and welding it in instead of the metal that was there on the original strut. Be sure that all metal surfaces that you're going to weld are prepared and cleaned and line up as close as perfect. Now this is cut down and I know exactly the length I want it to be. I'm going to mark that off to make sure that it sits exactly where I want it. Be mindful of the top, or your gland nut will require a piece of about an inch in length, because the first 20 millimeters of the tube is drilled down in size, and you don't want to get that welded on. You want to weld it on down where the tubing is as thick as possible. So these three pieces put together and my shock insert in there kind of shows me where I want it. So tagging this up, and in my case I'll be using a TIG welder, and I will be purging with gas to make sure that my weld is as strong as possible, and the penetration is exactly like it should be, because when you do this, you want it to be as strong as it possibly can be. When you're not putting out the threaded sleeve on the outside, but you're just welding the tubes together like this, you need it to be very strong. So if you don't know what you're doing or haven't done this before, make sure that you get a buddy that can weld, or get it by a weld shop and let them do it, because this is safety wise not really recommended, but this is how you weld tube together, so this will hold. My experience tells me that. I've never had one fail before. And this is also just to see if I can make this $50 coilover, and so far I can, by reusing an old set of coilovers. But normally when I do this, I put on a threaded sleeve outside the original strut, and I weld that onto it to make it as strong as possible. And turning my attention to the new top bearing of the suspension. I'm not putting on camber plates. This is just a stock top bearing that's going on there. And when you do this, you have to make some modifications, because your strut insert is not going to fit the, in my case, just some random coilover spring tops. So be mindful of this when you drill or otherwise change the spring heads, that you have enough surface and enough material to retain the spring, that it will not just fly out. And my strut insert, the damper itself, has a fitment on top that allows it to hold the top hat or the head of the spring, so it can rotate. And I am making this track so that my top hat will fit right into this track to keep the spring oriented. And after some trial and error, it fits together perfectly. So, putting it all together, putting on a bump stop, putting on this dirt jacket or dust cap, then the spring, the spring top, in my case I am fitting a small spacer, and the top mount, and a locking nut. And that is basically the coilover on the front of my 1771 Celica. Here it is compared to the stock suspension leg, and now you have a coilover setup instead of a stock spring and a damper. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you like this video, and I will see you on the next one.